Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. And a busy workshop it is at the moment. Behind me, the dismantled remains of the Rapidor Manchester saw, and that's what this video is going to be all about. This intro is a remake. I did an intro at the beginning of the video, at the beginning of the process, and there was no head. It was just neck down and voice, so I thought I'd better do it again. So I've already taken it apart. So you're going to get to see what I did. So this one's all about the saw. We're going to get stuck into that and see what it needs. But I mentioned busy. Peter's B175 cycle parts are here. They're in the storage shed at the back. So we're going to get into that at some point as well within the next few weeks. Strip them down, see what needs to be repaired or replaced, and then have a chat with Peter, see what he wants to do. We're going to look at surface finish options, paint, powder coat, that kind of thing, whatever it is that he decides to do, we will look into. And then also, we've got another B175 engine on the bench, which separate to the one that we did for Peter. He's got that back now. This is another one. Well, it's a bottom end that's come in, and I don't know if we're going to get the top end. I'm not sure. The owner might do that himself. But so that's a complete rebuild. Had a bit of a life. It was a bit grotty, but it's on the road to recovery. So just waiting for some parts to come in from Michelle at Rexcont Racing to progress that. And Michelle was here actually a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago. She was here, popped in for a cup of tea and a bit of a look around, see where her parts end up that she sends me. So that was really nice, and it was a pleasure to welcome her here and have a bit of a chat about her dad and, all the things that, she sort of grew up with, really, two-stroke racing and motorbikes and Bantams and things like that. So it sounds like an idyllic childhood to me. But anyway, she's an exceptional young lady, and I like to, as you know, promote people that do a good job, give a good service, and she definitely falls into that category. And we need to get young people coming into this world of heritage engineering and vintage vehicles and that kind of thing. So if you have the opportunity, you need some Bantam spares, please do go along to Rexcont Racing and support her there. You won't be disappointed. And as I say, let's give these young people a leg up, because in 30 years' time, when we're too decrepit to do anything, they're going to be carrying the torch for us. So I heartily support young people getting involved. So anyway, I'm going to stop waffling. We'll get into the saw and we'll do some work. Right, as you can see, I've done a little bit already. I've removed the vice jaws, and I've given all this area here a really good clean up with the vacuum cleaner. Or at least as best I could do with the vacuum cleaner. There was a lot of sawdust. In fact, this thing here, this channel where the vice jaws run, was completely jam-packed with sawdust and all kinds of debris from probably, half a century sitting in a barn. But it all came out, and I gave it a good scrape with a screwdriver. And it's in pretty good condition, really. There's a little bit of a weld here. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe there was a crack and someone's welded it to stop it running. But all this sort of area around here seems pretty sound, so we're not going to worry too much about that. The ways, if you want to call them that, where the vice jaw sits, is remarkably flat. I saw a YouTube video by another guy who was doing one of these, and he had to mount the whole sort of base casting in his milling machine and take a cut across these two surfaces to get it flat. But this one, just running a 12-inch steel rule across, I think that's good enough. I don't think we need to worry about that. It'll just be a case of running the wire wheel over these flat surfaces just to get it nice and clean, get all the rust off. So I think, that's a bit of a win, really. Everything else is pretty filthy. I did toy with the idea of taking it outside and giving it a blast off with the pressure washer, but then I thought, getting it dry again and, potentially coming in here and, lots of moisture, and it just seemed like more hassle than it was worth. So I think the best thing to do It's just a glove up, get it stripped down into its constituent parts, and then we'll worry about cleaning it from there on in. I may still take the sort of bed casting out and give that a blast off. Paint finish wise, just move this whole sort of bow assembly, lifts up and moves out the way. The paint that's on it is peeling off all over the place, and underneath it appears to be just black iron. I don't think there's any paint finish on underneath, so this might have been the original paint finish, or the fact that, you know, even the motor seems to be the same colour, and the motor's definitely not original. It could have been stripped and painted at some stage, or depending on the age of it, if we can find some numbers, I'm not sure if there's a serial number or anything on it, it might have just been bare iron finish. If it was made during the war, in particular, it might have been war finish, which, you know, it wouldn't have got a lick of paint anyway, because obviously they wanted to make things as quickly as they could, and they didn't want to expend, you know, frivolously with resources like paint. So that could have been the answer. But Tweedy's given me a hard time. He said that if I don't paint it the original colour, I'll lose originality marks and he'll be cross with me. But, you know, he's only kidding, obviously. But Tweedy, I think the original colour might just be bare iron. So I think I'm just going to paint it. I don't know. I'll see what I've got. I've definitely got some Colchester Dove Grey, so I might paint it that colour. I think it'd look quite good. So we'll see. But yeah, the paint's probably going to come off quite easily, I think, with a wire wheel or maybe some paint stripper. I need to stop doing that. I'll have to get the vacuum cleaner out again. But yeah, we'll see. So let me grab some tools, and I think the first thing to do is to remove the bow, the actual hacksaw element, which is these bolts here, I believe, which removes it from the sliding portion. You've got this kind of this large clamping casting here on the top. We can take that off, and we can take the sliding portion off, and then we can get in and start looking at the drive mechanism and stripping that down. But I'm going to take some photographs with my cell phone as we go along, just so that, I mean, it's a fairly simple assembly, but you never know, do you? Just to make sure that I don't, you know, make a mess of it when I put it back together. So let me grab some tools, and we'll get this assembly here off. And when I was pointing to this assembly here, you probably didn't see it, so let me move you up. I'm talking about this assembly here, and this this sort of clapper box arrangement that the saw moves in and out, slides in and out on. Right then, it's Grandad's big spanners to the rescue. It's all Whitworth as far as I can tell. So just going to put a pair of gloves on. We'll start off with a 5/8 Whitworth, and we'll get these clapper box nuts undone, and we'll go from there. That one's not tight. I imagine that this is something that can be adjusted. There's a spring washer under there. Yeah, I imagine this is something that can be adjusted to compensate for wear and to, you know, make sure that it runs freely but with minimum play. You can see the bits of sawdust and stuff falling away as I do this. I'm thinking that some of the bits I might take outside and give them a going over with the jet wash, but you know, no washer under there, it's missing. So we find a washer for that. Oops. Dropped one on the floor already. No, it's gone in there, it's alright. We can retrieve it. But yeah, easier to manage the smaller pieces and get them cleaned and dried. And they're sort of, you know, very, very sort of reminiscent of a lathe, really. Probably scraped in, I would think, originally. But we'll have to have a look and see what condition it's all in. These are what these are made out of. So we've got these spacing pieces here, and they look like they're made out of some sort of fibre. So we'll remove those. Some sort of compressed fibre type material. It's good to be using Grandad's tools. Gordon tools, this one. Chrome vanadium. These were made in Sheffield, which was where Great British Steel was made. Lots of it, at least. Oh, that's spinning, so we need another one underneath. Is it the same size? Probably getting a good shot of my top of my head. See what we can find that will fit that. I think it's covered in paint, if that's the problem. I think it is supposed to be 5/8, but I think the fact that it's got lots of paint on it is causing us problems. That's better. We're getting somewhere now. I don't think it's a bolt head, I think it's two nuts on the end of a stud. It is. Two nuts on the end of a stud. There we go. We're learning as we go along. Same on this side, hopefully. Yep. Oops. You'll notice that I've got the whole assembly on two kind of like furniture moving dollies, just like an MDF board with casters, one at each corner. I think they're rated for 200 kgs each, so yeah, more than enough to take the weight of this thing. So I guess once we've removed this big central bolt here, this cap will come off and we'll be able to remove these square section ways from the machine, and that will leave the bow connected to the cranking mechanism. Got another spanner here. That's the right one, and that is 1/2 inch Whitworth. How tight is this going to be? Not too bad. Right. I'll just be conscious of the fact that bits might try to fall. That's it. There's one of the rails or ways, if you want to call them. I don't know what you would call them, really. Sliding rails. There's the other one. Okay. We've got this big heavy casting again with the V-ways ground into it. Wonder how warm that will be. We'll find out, won't we? We'll find out. But right. This is now secured to the crank arm somehow. Possibly roll pins, I can see something through there. Oops. And it's secured the no, that's just the blade fitting at the bottom, so it's just secured here now to this this crank arm. So once we've got that out of the way, we can remove the bow. So let me just do a bit of investigation into how that comes out, and I shall bring you back. Probably get you in a bit closer as well. Right, I've got you a bit closer in on the crank pin. That this is the bow of the saw here, and this is the crank pin that moves it backwards and forwards on the slides. And you can see it's a bit cleaner than it was before. What I did was I got the brush out of the parts washer and just dipped it in a bit of parts washing fluid and just went over the area with that. And it's a really effective way of just locally cleaning something up, just so you can see what's going on. And there's two, the crank pin runs through this trunnion here and through the journal on the bow here, and there's a pin in here and there's two pins here, one in each side of the of this trunnion. And I think that these pins are fixed in the trunnion. I think they just slide on the pin. I think there's probably a keyway in the pin, and this here is a grub screw. So I can get an Allen key in there and remove this grub screw. And I'm hoping now that the pin will just push out, and that the pins in the trunnion are there to, let's get one of those little magnetic trays of the smaller parts. Yeah, I'm hoping that the pins in the trunnion are just there to guide the pin and to stop it from turning. So let's have a go. I'm not entirely sure if that's actually going to work, because I don't see any means of pulling these out other than potentially tapping them and making a puller up. But it's always a good idea just to clean things up, I think. Just move this up out of the way before I start tippy-tappying at things. I've got a ratchet strap here. I'm just gonna use it to hold the bow up. Ooh. Up out the way. Just hook that around there. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a tap. If it doesn't move, we'll stop and we'll reevaluate, because I might be wrong, of course. I've never had one of these things apart before. And that is moving. That is moving. So we're going to have to take the weight of the bow so it doesn't bounce onto the floor, do some damage. Okay. Alright, that's out. So there's no slots in the pin. I was wrong about that. It's just a plain pin. So we'll figure out what those other pins are for. But that's the bow out the way. So let's find somewhere for this to go. Put it down here with the motor. Treat that as an assembly when we come to do the cleanup. Shift the ratchet strap and this screwdriver, and yeah, we can see a bit more now. So here's the crank arm that comes off the crank itself, which is connected to the drive pulley. So there's not a great deal more to come off, really. This is the dash pot here. Just double check that you're seeing what I'm talking about. Right, so yeah, dash pot that damps the action of the bow coming down, so it's a nice gentle descent, just drop. This is the trip rod. But when the the bow cuts through the workpiece and it actually comes to its rest position, knocks the trip rod and disengages the drive. That's not working very well. I think it's gummed up, or perhaps it needs some adjustment, or maybe it's even worn out. We need to do some repairs, but I'm not entirely sure at the moment. So to remove this, let me just move you back a bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Right, that's better. So gloves back on. So the next thing to come off, I think, is this casting here. But that's actually not going to come out until we remove, we're going to have to remove the pulley and the trip assembly, because the pin that secures the pulley and the trip assembly also secures this casting here and the crank. So that's the next thing. We can probably undo this nut. I don't know if you can see it, there's a nut in here that secures the crank arm. There's quite a lot of headache on that. I don't know if there'll be a bush in there. There might be a bush that we can renew or remake. We'll get that out of the way, and then we've just got to get the pulley assembly off, and then we're pretty much done, really. There's a spring down here, probably outshot, I'm not entirely sure. There's a spring anyway that preloads the trip rod. It looks as though it could really do a replacement because the coils are quite stretched. So that we'll probably need to try and find a spring the right length and the right diameter, so that we can approximate the original spring load. But yeah, that's what we'll do. So I'll find a spanner. We'll get the crank arm off, and then we've got to look at we've got to come around this side then and have a look at removing the main drive pulley. But it's a journey of discovery, and you're on it with me. So I've never taken one of these apart. As I say, it's quite a fairly simple machine, but yeah, not without its hidden secrets. Okay, so the crank pin or crank arm is secured by a bolt with a 1/2 inch width spanner size heads, nut and bolt. So let's see if we can get this undone. So very pleased and very glad to have my granddad's Whitworth spanners to hand. So they really are coming into their own today. What we've got here, we've got another Gordon, Sheffield, England. Some good quality tools that have stood the test of time. Everything seems very, very well made on this machine. Oh. Wouldn't expect anything else, really. No, we might struggle to get this crank arm off, actually, with the access that we've got. Just drop the washer into all that gunk that's down there. Let's see if we can get the see if we've got enough movement to get the bolt out. Possibly not. Actually, though, if we drag this over here, oh, there we go. That's all it took. A bit of lateral thinking. There we go. Great big dog bone of a thing. It does look as though there's potentially a sleeve in there, doesn't it? Well, that might just be dirt, actually. No, there isn't, is there? There's no bush in there. It's just on the. It just runs on a bore machined into the casting. So it looks as though there's an oil point there. Look, I wonder how much oil it's received over the years. Oh, there is some oil in there though. How long that's been in, I don't know. But if need be, and if it's worn, we can always bore it out and fit it with a bush, can't we? Which I imagine, that's probably what it was intended to be like. because things were built to be repaired, weren't they, back in the day? Right, it looks as though the pin itself is a bit of a press fit in the crank. Can you see that at all? I don't know if you can. I think the camera's looking quite in the right place, is it? A lot of dodgy camera work on this video, but it's better that you see things than not see things. So there you go, you can just see that shiny portion of the crank pin sticking out. I think that's probably a decent fit into the crank. So we'll wait until we get it all apart before we try to remove that. Just so that we don't do any damage and we don't cause any burrs or scratches, because if we don't damage that, we can use that diameter, providing it's round, we can use that diameter to match up with the, if we have to repair the crank arm, we can use that, can't we, to get our sizing. So, right, this belt needs to come off, which is still connected to the counter shaft. And then you can see that belt, can't you? There you go. The belt round the main drive pulley, still connected to the counter shaft. I think we need to remove the counter shaft, or certainly slacken it, slacken the plumber blocks, because we'll need to get some adjustment on the belt to remove it, and then we can get that off. Get the wheel assembly removed with the trip rods, and sorry, just pushed it right into the camera stand. Yeah, that's pretty much us, really. So not much more to go. So I'm just doing a bit of cleaning. Just to see what we're going to encounter. There's a square-headed bolt going into this main casting, this main trunnion for the drive pulley. And there's a hole which is completely bunged up with gunk. I think that might just be a lubrication hole, though. I don't think there's any kind of pin or anything in there. I think it's just these square-headed bolts that secure probably a pair of bushings in the casting, I would think. But I'll tell you what I am uncovering is much more of this green paint, which I have to say, Tweedy, if you're listening, if you're watching rather, it was either plain black iron finish, and someone's done this green finish at a later date, or it was green from the factory. Because it just seems so well applied. It just, doesn't seem like a slapdash job at all. It looks as though it's always been there. So maybe I'm going to revise my earlier statement on painting it Colchester grey. Tweedy, you've won, you bugger. I think I'm going to paint it. I think I'm going to try and match this green and paint it this colour. He's a bugger, isn't he, eh? He's an influencer. That's what he is, an influencer. That's what they call him these days. But I think he's right, though. I think we need to do it properly. So there you go. And if you don't know who I'm talking about when I say Tweedy, have a look on YouTube at Mr. Tweed's Garage, which is his YouTube channel where he works on vintage machinery, cars, motorbikes, all the sorts of stuff that I like, and I imagine the sort of stuff that you like as well if you watch me. I was over there last weekend, just popped in for a cup of tea, as you do, and had a bit of a look around his workshop and his various areas that he keeps his machines and keeps his vehicles, and yeah, it was a really good visit. So go over and have a look for yourself. I think you'll enjoy it. Right. We need to get this thing off, don't we? But we need to get the belt off first. Okay, that's the countershaft removed, and it's a proper one. Needs a bit of work. I don't know if you can make that out. Picador, England. So it's a proper countershaft. Someone's bought it. It's not a piece of scrap that's been made up. I'm not going to beat around the bush. The bearings feel all right. I mean, if I can change them, I will. But you know, for several decades lying in a barn, those bearings have done really well. They're not. They don't feel harsh at all. But if I can change them, I will. And there's a bit of. You can see that there's a bit of headache in that. That larger pulley. We'll see if we can do something with that. It might just be loose on the grub screw or on the key or whatever secures it. But it's a 10-inch Picador countershaft, which were, you know, something that you could buy to repair machinery, upgrade machinery, and was probably used as standard equipment on, you know, a number of machines built in the UK over the years. But I think Phil Whitley from Phil Whitley My Week This Week will be interested in that, because I think he's fitted a Picador countershaft to his lathe that he's been working on. He's been restoring an old lathe. So worth a watch. Going over to Phil Whitley's channel. He's up in East Yorkshire, which is where I originated from before I moved to the south. But yeah. Phil, there you go. Another Picador. They turn up all over the place. Oh! Is that time for tea? Must be. Someone's rung the gong. It's time for tea. So I think that's a very good indicator that it's time for me to go and have a cup of tea. I'll see you. Right, we are back. Well, I am back. You haven't been anywhere. I had the evening off. It's now the next day. And we're on a handheld adventure. And the reason why we are on a handheld adventure is because I want to show you the serial number, which I found. And I've given it a bit of a scrub up with a wire wheel. There you go. 3XM412543. Let me see if I can get it a bit better. This light's not great. There we go. So I think that makes it a 1941. It may make it a 1943. But I think it's 1941 from the research I've been doing. And that means something to us because it means it was almost certainly produced for the war effort. Because the whole economy was geared towards the war effort. So machinery like this would have gone into, you know, war production. So I think that also tells us that the green paint finish was applied later, because it would have almost certainly have come out of the factory in war finish, which would have been the black iron. They might have, you know, oil blackened it or something like that. But they probably just, you know, cleaned up the surfaces that needed to be cleaned up, assembled it and sent it out the door to go and crack on with whatever it was needing to make. So that tells us that this little machine, in its own small way, contributed towards the war effort and contributed to defending us. So there you go. I think it's a good thing that we're bringing it back, hopefully, and it's going to do some more work for us. But it's certainly earned its keep in the past, that's for sure. But yeah, there we go. So I think that answers the question about the paint finish, doesn't it? That I've been flip-flopping backwards and forwards. Final decision. We will paint it with whatever paint we've got to hand, which at the moment is the Colchester Dove Grey lathe paint, which I think is fitting for a machine tool. Anyway, it will be better than this green paint finish that's on it now, because, you know, there is no original paint finish. It would have just been bare metal. And we're not going to leave it like that, so there we go. Decision made. Final word. We'll say no more about it. Right, the next thing is to get you back on the tripod, and then we need to try and get this assembly here, this ring or this cup, threaded cup and spring, which should hopefully release the drive pulley and the trip levers behind. But you can see, let me get you in close before you go back on the tripod. Someone's had a right old go at this in the past. Is that showing up? Yeah, it is. Looks like they've been using a chisel or something to get that off. So that doesn't bode well. It means it's probably on there. I don't know if I've got anything big enough to remove it at the moment. I might try my Stilsons. Let's see if I can get the Stilsons around it to unscrew it. It's already damaged, so I'll go on the bits that are already damaged, and then we'll see if we can clean it up a little bit better once it's off. Maybe we can mill some flats on or something for future maintenance. But let's get you back on the tripod and start digging through the tools, see what we've got for removing this pulley and spring. Well, this is not going well. This is the biggest pair of Stilsons that I've got, and they are not big enough. That's as wide as it will possibly go. Oops, without basically becoming thread bound and risking the jaws from pulling through like that. And it's just not big enough. So we're going to have a think about this one. Like I say, I don't really want to have to start hammering at it with a chisel or a punch, but might have to. Don't really want to. Just move that out a tiny wee bit more, as far as I dare. And no, it won't latch on. Oh, hang on, might have it. Oops! Oh, goodness me. No, it's not going to work. We're just going to do ourselves some damage. So we'll avoid that, I think. Right. I'll have to have a bit of a rummage and see what I can come up with. Okay, developments. I have tried with everything I've got in this workshop, and I can't get that threaded ring or threaded cup off the end of the pulley. My Stilsons aren't big enough. I tried a strap wrench, which was wishful thinking really, that just skidded around. I'm not prepared to start smashing into it with a hammer and chisel, because I think we're just going to chisel more lumps off of it and make it worse, and then we're probably going to have to make a new one, which I don't really want to have to do if I don't have to. So I have found the biggest spanner in my collection, which is this one. King Dick. And King Dick is 1 inch width at one end and 7/8 width at the other, and he fits this nut here on the end of the crank arm. So if we can get this off, and we can get the crank arm off, or the crank rather off, we can probably just pull the pulley and its axle out this way, and then we can remove that cup, probably using the vise or something on the bench. So that's the plan. So I just need to get it. Which way am I going to undo it? So it's going to go that way. It's going to go that way. So I need to. I put a piece of wood underneath. I'm just going to lock the crank against that piece of wood, and we will see what we can do. I'll just about go in there. So here we go. Oh, it's tight. It is very tight. Oh, dear me. Dear me, that is tight. But then it's 7/8 inch width, so what do we expect? I'm just going to be a bit brutal. And just see if we can get it to loosen. There we go. There we go. We've cracked it. Decent nut. Very decent. You seeing that? There you go. So I'm guessing this is probably keyed on. certainly doesn't want to come off with light pressure, so let's get that out of the way. That is properly on there. Might have to undo that square headed bolt there, but I think that just retains the bush in the housing. I don't think that retains the shaft, but we'll see. I'm just going to give that a few gentle taps. Well, when I say gentle taps, I'm going to hit it with a piece of wood on the end so that we don't damage anything. Just see what, if anything, happens. I don't think that's moved at all. Okay. Right. I'm wondering if this pin in here, if we're going to do this, square-headed bolt here, maybe we can get the pin out of this casting and we can go through there with a copper drift. Potentially. Let's give it a go, see what happens. It's a voyage of discovery for all of us. That came out nicely. I don't know if that's some sort of end cover or end cap on there. Let me just switch you off and explore. Right, we've got movement. I don't think it's seen the oil can for many a moon, but you'll have to excuse me being in the way a little bit. But I'm going to lean over here. I'm just using a chasse bronze, as my French colleagues would call it. Oh no. Kidding me. Let's go the other way. There's just not enough clearance that way. Oh no. What a blow. No, we just can't do it. Bugger. Oh well. Tap it back in again. Right, you don't need to watch me doing that, do you? Tap it back in again and see if we can go the other way. Right, best view in the house, or best I can get you anyway. We've made some progress. I just tried something off camera, which involved that. And what I did was, I pushed this pin back into the housing. I interposed a piece of wood between the pin and the crank shaft rather, and then I, smashed the granny out of it until the crank came loose. So I just need to knock this pin back into the housing now, remove the crankshaft. In fact, we don't need to put that pin back in the housing. We can just remove the crankshaft like that. So this should all come out of here now, which it does. So there's our shaft with the spring cup on the end of it. There's our big pulley. And that's what we needed to achieve. So we have achieved it. So sometimes, you know, not terribly proud of it. But sometimes with big stubborn machinery, you just have to smash the granny out of it. So I'll finish extracting this pin. This casting will lift away, and then we've got the bronze bush. The famous bronze bush, which is a bit that often wears from the research I've been doing. We've got that to remove. We've got the trip levers to remove. Big spring. And that's pretty much our machine dismantled. Right, just using the top of the parts washer here as a temporary work surface. I've just given things a bit of a wipe. I've not gone bananas because it's all going to need a really good clean. So here is the, I would call it the trip lever, but it's actually the start lever. And there is the bronze bush. This is the end that fits inside the start lever. And that's actually not bad at all. A little bit of rock, but not much. Trying the bush in the casting on the machine, it's very loose. So I'm thinking that you know, there's quite a lot of wear on the bronze bush where it goes into the casting. And if we just put this end through the trip lever, through the start lever, that's borne out by the fact that it's very, very slack, that end. But a good fit that end. So this is definitely worn. The other issue is that the shaft looks like it's quite worn as well. I haven't mic'd it, but I'm going to have to. I mean, everything's going to get mic'd up once it's clean. We won't be doing that in this video. We'll get everything washed off, and then in the next video we'll come back and do some. So that fits through this way. You can probably hear that. It's pretty slack there. The good news is it feels slack all the way along. So if the wear on the shaft is fairly uniform, we might get away with just polishing this shaft to a reasonable finish and then making the new bush match whatever diameter we've got once we've polished it. Because I don't think it's bad enough to warrant, you know, getting it welded up or even having a go at welding it ourselves and machining it back. I think that would just, first of all, I don't want to put that much heat into it because it will probably take out any heat treatment that may have gone into it at the factory. And the other thing is, it's just an awful lot of work, isn't it, for, you know, something that we can get around. How often will the saw be used? Not very often. How long will it run for? Actually, probably quite a while. If you're sawing through a fairly decent chunk of stock, it'll probably take an hour or so to get through it. But if we can take that wear out by just polishing that shaft, making a bush with an ID that fits, will be good, I think. The good news is there's no key on the end of the shaft. It's just a taper, and that's in good condition. And we saw that the crank was a really good fit on that taper. It didn't want to come off, so that's a good sign. That the taper's not been spinning or anything horrible like that. We've just got some wear and tear. So I think we can get all of the wear out by just matching the bush to the castings, to the shaft, to the start lever, and we'll get a run out of it, and it will be fine. So that's good news. This end cap thing, I thought this and this were two pieces when I was looking at it, when it was all assembled, but it isn't. And I think the reason why someone's had such a hard time getting this off, I don't think this has ever been off since it left the factory. So I'm going to give it a really good clean up, and I might just mount this in the lathe and just tidy this up so it doesn't look so you know, so abused, really. But I think that's it. I think we'll leave it there for this video, and I will just say, as ever, thank you very much indeed for watching. Slightly dry subject, I think, taking this machine apart, so I appreciate you getting this far with me. Thanks to all of you who've subscribed, and those of you that are watching and are not subscribed, please do consider giving us a subscribe and hitting the old bell notification. And it won't cost you a shilling, and you'll get every video beamed magically to your pocket or wherever you keep the device that you watch your videos on. So there you go. Worth it, I think. We're going to be doing some interesting stuff going forward. Just before I do go, I'd just like to say get well soon to Dale Swager over in Montana. Dale was in the hospital. He's out now, and he has put a video out actually since he was in the hospital, but he was saying that he just needs a little bit more time to recuperate. So get well soon, Dale. We hope that you are fully restored to the health soon, and you can get back in the workshop and start working on your projects. And remember, a day without swagger is a day without sunshine. So there you go. I'll leave you there. Bye for now. Mind how you go.